I mean, talk about a silence louder than a stadium speaker. William spent 3 hours on Hard FM during a bank holiday. 4.3 million listeners. A live broadcast from a cafe in the Isles of Scilly. The first time the station had ever gone live from that location. He chatted about his daughter's obsession with Taylor Swift. His youngest leaving jam-covered fingerprints across the back of the car. His wife's cancer recovery. An incredible mom. An incredible wife. Our family simply couldn't cope without her. He weighed Aston Villa's chances. He revealed the song that helps him through a rough day. He even ended the cream versus jam debate by calling on his grandmother as the ultimate authority, which, frankly, ends the argument instantly. He mentioned everyone in his life. Yet he never said his brother's name. Not once in 3 hours. Not with 4 million people tuned in. Not during a warm and personal interview where he openly shared details about nearly every other person who matters to him.
Criticising everyone in the family because they, of course, were these sort of noble people who'd fled the royal system and were trying to do good in the world. And the problem is they've had 11 PR advisors, as you say, in 5 years. That very much hints at chaos.
Here's where things start getting very interesting. That silence wasn't random, and according to this narrative, it lines up with 4 major developments that unfolded during the exact same period. First, a PR contradiction that completely unraveled within 24 hours and allegedly left a documented breach sitting right there in the public record. Second, a dramatic Netflix viewership collapse that, according to critics, exposed what the Sussex brand was really selling and where its commercial value truly came from. Third, a legal precedent that appeared to remove nearly every remaining doubt about how royal titles can actually be stripped. And finally, a trademark filing that seemed to show the Sussex legal team already understood exactly which part of the operation was legally vulnerable and why. These 4 developments are presented as connected. Not separate stories unfolding side by side, but different chapters of the same larger story. Each one shining a light on the same underlying question from a different direction. And when all 4 are lined up together, the picture being painted is not about what might happen someday. It is presented as a documented account of what has already happened and where events may already be heading. So let's begin with the contradiction, because this one comes with dates, statements, and a very public paper trail. On April 28, 2025, Meghan Markle appeared on a podcast with entrepreneur Jamie Kern-Lima. During the conversation, Lima held up a gift basket that Meghan had reportedly sent the previous year. Attached to the basket was a printed card. The message read, "With compliments of HRH, the Duchess of Sussex." Within hours, media outlets that reached out to the Sussex operation reportedly received the exact same response. Clear, direct, and without qualification. The Sussexes do not use HRH titles. Then, just 24 hours later, another source connected to the same Sussex operation reportedly gave the New York Post a very different explanation.
Markle is allegedly very worried that Prince William could move to strip her of her Duchess of Sussex title when he becomes monarch. You know, if I was Meghan, I'd be pretty worried too, because she's still happy to use the Duchess of Sussex title.
Absolutely.
I mean, she uses it on her website, she tries to sell her candles and her...
Then came the explanation that raised even more eyebrows. Yes, they still retain the styles. Yes, Meghan Markle used it on the basket. But, according to the updated defense, it was personal, it was a gift, and under the agreement they do not use it commercially. And just like that, the story shifted. 2 statements. 1 PR team. 24 hours apart. The first response did not qualify the use. It did not explain the use. It did not provide context for the use. It flatly denied the use ever happened. The second response did the exact opposite, confirming the use while attempting to minimize its significance by framing it as personal rather than commercial. That is being presented not as a simple clarification, but as a direct contradiction sitting in the public record. Same operation. Same issue. 2 completely different explanations separated by only a single day. According to this interpretation, the first statement was inaccurate, while the second effectively acknowledged that reality while trying to contain the fallout. Then the situation became even more interesting when a former palace courtier spoke on the record to the Daily Beast, claiming that the Sandringham Agreement, the 2020 exit arrangement, made one thing absolutely clear. The Sussexes had agreed not to use the HRH styles at all. Not commercially. Not publicly. Not occasionally. Not in any form. Not under any circumstances.
I think Harry and Meghan should be shaking in their boots right now if they are not already.
And this is where the story takes an even sharper turn. The official Buckingham Palace statement from January 2020, which remains available on the royal website, stated, "The Sussexes will not use their HRH titles as they are no longer working members of the royal family." Now, if that agreement truly covered all use of the titles, and both the former courtier's account and the palace's own statement suggest exactly that, then critics argue the gift basket card becomes much more than an innocent detail. Under that interpretation, it becomes a documented breach. What makes the situation even more remarkable is that the Sussex team's second statement is being portrayed as the very thing that confirmed it, while attempting to soften the impact by drawing a distinction between personal use and commercial use. Then came the response reportedly linked to William's camp, and it was brief enough to fit on a postcard. "There is no way King William will tolerate this. The titles will be removed when he becomes king. A solution will be found." According to the narrative being presented, this was not framed as a warning, a threat, or a burst of emotion. It was presented as something far more significant, a statement of intent attributed, documented, and placed firmly on the public record.
We're not dealing with the smartest person in the world. We know that from all the things we've seen. Seriously, she's not.
Yeah.
She's nice and she's smart and fairly, she can get along in the world.
If Palace Insider is connecting dots other channels keep missing, make sure you hit that like button. It takes a second, costs absolutely nothing, and helps more people see the stories everyone is talking about. Now let's move to the commercial website because this is where things get even more complicated. The gift basket card, regardless of how you interpret the Sandringham Agreement's distinction between personal and commercial use, could still be viewed as a private exchange between two individuals. The As Ever website is an entirely different level of exposure. On the brand description page for As Ever, where products including raspberry jam, flour sprinkles, and an $89 bottle of Napa Valley champagne are being sold, the official branding reportedly identifies the company as having been created by Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex. Not in a private note. Not in a personal conversation. On a commercial storefront. On product-related pages. In a business environment built around sales. The Sussex camp's reported defense is that HRH and Duchess of Sussex are legally separate designations. Their argument is that the Sandringham Agreement specifically addressed the HRH style and did not extend to the Duchess of Sussex title itself. However, according to the former courtier's account, that distinction does not hold. And notably, those aligned with William's position are not recognizing that distinction either. Instead, they are reportedly treating the titles as part of the same overall issue and viewing the website's use of the designation as evidence of an ongoing, commercially measurable, and fully documented violation of the agreement. But here is the detail that many observers find especially revealing. Long before public debate intensified around this issue, the As Ever trademark was reportedly filed under Cobblestone Lane LLC and 2022 Trademarks LLC, not under Duchess of Sussex and not under Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex. The legal ownership of the trademark sits with corporate entities that exist independently of the title itself. That means whatever eventually happens to the title, whenever any future letters patent might arrive, the trademark remains protected because it belongs to the LLCs, not to the Duchess. Critics view that structure as deliberate, sophisticated legal planning. They argue it suggests the Sussex legal team understood the title could someday face challenges and took proactive steps to shield the commercial brand from any potential consequences tied to the personal designation.
The Prince Andrew scandal was the end of the changes that are coming under King William V. Let me tell you, you are wrong.
But here's the twist that trademark paperwork can't solve. A trademark can protect a business name. It can protect ownership rights. It can protect corporate assets. What it cannot protect is public fascination, brand identity, consumer recognition, or the reason people care in the first place. According to this argument, the first As Ever product launch did not sell out in under an hour because California suddenly ran out of jam. And 500,000 Instagram followers did not appear before a single product announcement because consumers were blown away by pricing strategies or product innovation. The claim being made is much simpler. People were not following a food brand. They were following a duchess. The trademark may survive any future legal developments, but critics argue the public interest that fueled those early numbers may not. In their view, the real commercial value sits in the title itself, not inside the LLCs. The trademark protects the companies. It does not necessarily protect the reason customers are paying attention to what those companies are selling. And before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to Palace Insider so you never miss what comes next. Then jump into the comments because this debate is only getting bigger. Do you believe the use of the Duchess of Sussex title on a commercial website crosses a line under the Sandringham Agreement? Or do you think the distinction between HRH and Duchess of Sussex actually changes the equation? Now, this is where the Netflix numbers enter the conversation, and supporters of this theory argue they tell the story more clearly than any legal document ever could. Back in December 2022, the Harry and Meghan Netflix documentary exploded onto the platform. It pulled in 81.6 million viewing hours within its first 3 days. At the time, it became the biggest documentary debut in Netflix history. By the end of its first full week, that number had climbed to 97.7 million hours. News coverage was everywhere. Every major outlet was discussing it. Social media was consumed by the conversation for weeks. But the key question is this: what exactly were viewers tuning in to watch? According to critics, they were not simply watching a couple share personal stories from Montecito. They were watching a royal drama unfold in real time. A Duke and Duchess of Sussex stepping away from one of the most famous institutions on earth and explaining why. The monarchy, the conflict, the palace, the controversy, the royal connection itself. In this interpretation, those elements were the real engine driving the audience. The title was the attraction. The content was simply the vehicle carrying it, not the couple, the crown. Then came March 2025 and with Love, Meghan. Same platform. Same overall partnership structure. Same public figure. But this time the focus shifted dramatically. Cooking demonstrations, honey harvesting, garden entertaining, lifestyle content built around the California dream. The show generated 12.6 million viewing hours in its first week and reached the global top 10 for that period, which initially sounds respectable. Until the broader rankings entered the picture. According to Netflix engagement reports covering the first half of 2025, with Love, Meghan reportedly ranked 383rd globally with around 5 million total views. It ranked below content many viewers would never expect it to trail, including older television episodes and even a children's cartoon, Grizzy and the Lemmings. Meanwhile, Harry's polo documentary reportedly drew roughly 500,000 views and landed far down the global rankings. Supporters of this argument point to those numbers and see a pattern. In 2022, the focus was a royal title caught in controversy. The monarchy, the institution, the conflict, the inheritance, the public dispute. In 2025, the focus shifted toward lifestyle content and everyday routines. Their conclusion is blunt. The title was doing the heavy lifting. Not the recipes, not the storytelling, not the production value, not the personalities, the title. And according to this interpretation, the viewing data already hinted at that conclusion long before Netflix's reported equity exit in March 2026. The argument being made is that Netflix had access to the engagement numbers long before the public saw them and likely understood where audience interest was coming from well in advance. Now let's talk about Andrew, because according to this argument, this is the piece that wipes away nearly every remaining question mark surrounding whether title removal is a realistic possibility or merely a hypothetical discussion. The claim is that in October 2025, King Charles removed Prince Andrew's HRH style and princely titles through letters patent. No parliamentary vote. No lengthy legal battle. No courtroom drama. No constitutional showdown. One royal action. One official document. End of story. And this is what makes supporters of the theory pay attention. Andrew reportedly held the Duke of York title from birth. He held HRH status from birth. He spent decades as a senior working royal, served in the Royal Navy, remained the monarch's son, and occupied a central place within the institution throughout his adult life. Yet, according to this interpretation, none of those factors ultimately mattered. Letters patent. One action. Gone. That is why critics of the Sussexes argue that discussions about William removing titles someday often miss a key point. Their position is that the mechanism has already been tested at the highest level imaginable. Not on a distant relative. Not on a minor royal. On the king's own brother. Someone whose connection to those titles stretched back to birth itself. According to this narrative, the process worked without constitutional chaos, without legal gridlock, and without parliamentary intervention. As a result, supporters of this theory claim William would not need to create a new legal pathway, commission constitutional studies, or take political risks on an untested procedure. The template would already exist. The only requirement would be the use of letters patent. The argument becomes even more interesting when commentators point to reports from royal biographers and journalists. Tom Sykes reportedly wrote in November 2024 that William intended to use that exact mechanism early in his reign. Palace officials did not publicly deny the report. No legal action followed. To supporters of this interpretation, that silence carried significance because it followed a detailed and attributed account concerning the future king's intentions toward his brother's titles. Then attention shifts to Tom Bower's book Betrayal, published in March 2026 and reportedly sourced through current and former aides connected to both the King and the Prince of Wales. One particular claim generated considerable attention. According to Bower's sources, William would take a hardline approach once he became king and would not hesitate to act against those he believed had wronged the monarchy. Supporters of Bower's work often point to his long publishing history. Across decades, numerous subjects challenged him publicly, criticized his reporting, or threatened legal action. Yet advocates argue that many of his major claims later received support through independent investigations or additional reporting. As a result, when Meghan Markle's team reportedly dismissed betrayal as a conspiracy theory, some commentators compared that response to previous public denials made by other controversial figures who also chose media statements instead of courtroom challenges. Their reasoning is straightforward. A lawsuit would trigger discovery, document requests, sworn testimony, and extensive legal scrutiny. Challenging a heavily lawyered biography through the courts can expose both sides to a process designed to uncover evidence. For that reason, some observers argue that declining litigation can sometimes be a strategic decision rather than a simple public relations choice. And this is where all the separate threads are tied together into one larger argument. Individually, each development may seem significant on its own. Together, supporters of this theory say they reveal a legal and commercial structure built around a single vulnerable point. The Sandringham Agreement created certain obligations. The gift basket controversy produced two conflicting statements within 24 hours. Critics argue the first denied the issue entirely, while the second acknowledged the underlying facts and attempted to reduce the damage by reframing the context. According to this interpretation, those events are not isolated incidents but pieces of a much larger story. According to this argument, the As Ever website provides ongoing commercial use of the Duchess of Sussex branding on a storefront actively selling products, while the Cobblestone Lane trademark structure allegedly reveals that the Sussex legal team already understood this area represented the most vulnerable part of the operation. The Netflix figures are presented as supporting the same conclusion from a completely different angle. Supporters of this theory argue that the commercial power of the Sussex brand comes largely from the title itself and the royal controversy surrounding it, rather than from products, content, or an independent celebrity brand standing on its own. Then there is the Andrew precedent. For those advancing this argument, it removes the final layer of uncertainty because it suggests the mechanism already exists. It is no longer theoretical. It has allegedly been demonstrated, tested, and placed on the record. But this is where the story shifts from legal documents and business structures into something far more personal. What made William's 3 hours on Hard FM so notable was not necessarily what he said. It was what he chose not to say. He shared stories about his daughter's interests. He talked about his youngest child's habit. He discussed his wife's recovery. He settled the cream versus jam debate by invoking his grandmother's authority. He revealed the song that helps him through difficult moments. He spoke openly and comfortably about the people closest to him. Yet there was one omission that many observers immediately noticed. He did not mention his brother. He did not mention his sister-in-law. He did not reference their children. 3 hours. A major holiday broadcast. Millions of listeners. Countless personal details. And still, not a single mention. That silence is where some royal commentators believe the real story begins. Roy Anika, widely regarded as one of the journalists most trusted by senior royal sources, has described William as someone who remembers important moments, chooses sides carefully, and rarely forgets significant events. According to this interpretation, William has not forgotten key moments involving Harry, particularly events that reportedly took place during difficult periods inside Kensington Palace. Supporters of this theory argue that Harry's silence during one crucial moment years ago has now been mirrored by William's silence in public today. One silence answering another. Years apart. Different circumstances. Yet carrying meaning for the people involved. Beneath the legal arguments, trademark filings, viewership reports, and palace speculation lies a much simpler story. Two brothers. The last widely remembered period when William and Harry appeared publicly united was when they were young boys walking behind their mother's coffin. Everything that followed, the marriages, the departures, the interviews, the memoirs, the business ventures, and the ongoing debates over titles, has unfolded against the backdrop of that shared history and the very different paths both men eventually chose. According to the narrative presented throughout this discussion, the legal question surrounding the Duchess of Sussex title has an established mechanism. The commercial question has data points supporters believe are already visible through audience engagement figures. And the political question has been fueled by multiple biographies, columns, and reports that have remained publicly unchallenged. Yet one question remains far less straightforward. What is the personal cost of removing a title connected to someone who is also part of your family? That answer cannot be found in legal filings, trademark applications, Netflix rankings, or palace statements. It exists in the silence. The gap between the names William mentioned and the names he did not. For many observers, that gap says more than any official statement ever could. So what is the final verdict according to this argument? The 24-hour contradiction is presented as evidence of a documented dispute over title usage. The website branding is cited as ongoing commercial use. The Netflix performance data is offered as a measure of where audience interest allegedly comes from. The Andrew example is presented as proof that a mechanism exists. And the biographies are viewed by supporters as significant because they remain publicly available and largely unanswered through legal channels. Taken together, advocates of this theory believe all roads lead toward the same conclusion, that the future of the title may ultimately depend on William. And William's radio appearance did not feel accidental to them. It felt deliberate, a future king speaking comfortably about every part of his world while carefully leaving certain names outside the conversation. Now I want to hear your thoughts. Which part stands out most to you? The 24-hour contradiction, the Netflix performance figures, the Andrew precedent, or the trademark filings that some believe revealed concerns about the title long before the public debate intensified. Drop your opinion in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to Palace Insider so you never miss the next development. This story continues to evolve, and there is no shortage of new twists waiting around the corner. If you enjoy this kind of deep dive analysis, hit the like button, and I'll see you in the next one.